Jonathan Samuel Kent. He's had it rough. He went from fun child character to this crappy teen character because Bendis had this as an idea on the table for some reason. And DC is really spinning their wheels because they have no clue what to do with him. And frankly, I'm unimpressed with how they've handled him so far. Even his relationship with Jay Nakamura is boring as paint. The only time Jay Nakamura has a personality is during Secret Six. Secret Six is a book that came out this year and is still going on. His personality is about as interesting as watching wine ferment, and that bleeds into any relationship he has, whether it's romantic or platonic. I'll say this before and I'll say it again. The problem with John Kent is that DC has no clue what to do with him. It's the same issue for all legacy characters, and how they end up coming across an editorial or a writer who has no idea what to do with them, and it leads to a variety of issues. Our first case study in this is the case of Wally West during DC Rebirth. The issue was DC editorial brought Wally back. They didn't exactly plan out an arc for him. So, what happened? What the hell did DC do? Well, it spiraled out into Heroes in Crisis, a book so bad it got retconned with extreme prejudice as soon as it ended, and later developments did not help. Sure, it's better than Heroes in Crisis, but that's a very low bar to cross. And just because it's better than Heroes in Crisis doesn't mean that DC wasn't spinning their wheels with Wally West. If you don't have a vision for that character, you're not going to do much with them. Then we have the Green Lanterns. All of them. I know Alan Scott is completely different from the Green Lantern Corps, but still he bears that title, and thus he ends up fading into the background whenever brought against all the other Green Lanterns. Here is what happens. Weaver, a character who has no plan and no clue in the greater scheme of things, that editorial and the writers could not fit into the greater scheme of things. And then you can have any rogue writer, any editorial just mandate that says, do whatever the hell you want this character, despite your betraying the fundamental nature of that character, or just giving that character assassination, or just the worst stories ever, or just spinning the wheels because who cares at this point. Or you do have a vision for that character, but that character ends up becoming a background character amid the ensemble cast, because it's not good when your main character ends up, well, fading into the background when their name is on the book. It also doesn't help that John did have a niche. See, child but not teenage characters being in the spotlight is a relatively empty niche in comic books. That kind of surprised me when I was trying to make a list of kids' superhero comic characters, and I came up with a lot of blanks. Animation is filled with child characters, as in characters 12 and under being the protagonist. Off the top of my head, there's Ben 10 from the original Ben 10 series. There's Aang from Avatar The Last Airbender. There's Jimmy Neutron. There's Fairly Odd Parents. There's its sequel series, A New Wish. There's Codename Kids Next Door. We can go further than that, but I think my point is pretty clear right now. On the comic end, I don't think we have much. I can only come up with comic characters on the Marvel end. Moon Girl, Lunella Lafayette is like 8 or 9. I know she's beneath 10. And Kid Kaiju is 11 years old. I could say the Power Pack, but I think Alex is an adult, Julie is an adult, Jack and Katie are teenagers, and if we add Franklin into the mix, he's also a teenager right now. Yeah, the market for kid characters is kinda empty right now. Not the market, the niche is kinda empty right now. And, DC, why did you drain this? Oh, because you gave Bendis a carte blanche to write this. So, now we're here. Where does this take us? Where is here? Well, here is the writers taking inspiration from Dragon Ball Z. with John in particular going on a journey to overcome kryptonite as his weakness. It's deliberately compared by DC that fans of Dragon Ball Z will recall Gohan's solo training in the mountains to become stronger. And that is the reference point. I'm willing to entertain the idea of John undergoing a journey to become immune to kryptonite, but you need to have a character arc in addition to the training arc itself. And I'm also willing to share this fear. When a writer is unable or unwilling to write a character properly, or is so bogged down in editorial mandates that they're just sort of spinning their own wheels, well, they do something kinda stupid. You pile on powers or display powers in order to make them appear to have the concept of progress. With John here, I don't need to explain what that fear is. That fear has manifested before. Adventures of Superman John Kent gave him lightning powers. Because, of course, DC needed to dredge up one of the dumbest ideas from the 90s? The dark age of comics? Really? I think Super Sons parodied this. Because, of course, Super Sons would parody this, because this is a stupid idea. Then again, who's the stupider idea? The stupid idea, or the bungled, half-hearted attempt to bring this stupid idea back and try to make it make sense somehow, and tries to make it cool for a different character in order to make that character stand out a bit more from the original character. I sincerely hope that they do have John find his niche, preferably away from all the crap that they've been trying to pull, but honestly, it's very difficult to have him find a niche at this point, especially when you take into account that Connor Kent, the Superboy from the 90s who was made to replace Superman during the Death of Superman event, is around. You two are having two Superboys fill what amounts to the same niche. That's going to be very difficult to write around without causing any issues. It takes a skilled writer to simply have two characters occupying the same niche on the same side and not have one or the other character feel like a complete redundancy. This is something that even skilled writers struggle at. Hell, even Geoff Johns' Green Lantern run, I really liked that run. Everyone really likes that run. It expanded the lore of the Green Lantern Corps a lot. But at the same time, it struggled to balance a large cast as well. Of course, you could simply hit the reset button on John, but that comes with its own issues. Yeah, you simply don't say, hey, we have a bisexual Superman, and then we're just going to hit the reset button and say, yeah, psych, this relationship isn't going to exist anymore. We're setting the clock back to 12 o'clock. No, you just don't do that. It has a lot of unfortunate implications about pretty much how this whole timeline works and how this character is supposed to develop, and he is not Franklin Richards, so you can't just excusably snap this away. Quick side note, Teenage John has a worse supporting cast than Kid John. Somehow. I don't know how, but somehow he's written that poorly. So in conclusion, if you want Teenage John Kent to work, you're going to need to make a few things happen. First, he needs a personality. So far, I feel like he's boring as paint. Because he's just a teenage superhero. He goes through the motions of a teenage superhero. He doesn't feel like he has anything other than the standard teenage superhero mold. Then you need to actually give him a supporting cast that isn't boring as wine fermenting. You need to have good conflict, good supporting cast characterization, which, to Secret Six's credit, it is doing this to some extent, but it needs to have more of that. 3. He really needs his own set of villains. Seriously, this kid feels like he doesn't have his own set of villains at all. Am I the only one feeling that? Because I don't remember any villains he's faced that weren't either another characters or just, really forgettable. I do remember his Injustice Superman bit, but that's just it. Well, those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.